Hey, y'all, and welcome back to another episode of Allison's Corner. Of course, I am your host, Allison. And before we get into it, I need to talk to y'all about the version of adulthood you thought that you were walking into. So, I want us to kind of think about this a little bit. Not necessarily your current reality, but what you imagined adulthood would feel like when you were younger. Because honestly, I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and I have come to a very simple conclusion, and that's TV lied to us. Like bold face, no hesitation, fully committed lies. And I don't even think we realized how much it shaped our expectations about life and just about what adulthood would look like. Because growing up, TV, it made adulthood look like this perfect mix of freedom and fun and independence, and you had a little bit of chaos, but it was cute chaos. You had your friends, you had your own place, you had your routines, and even the struggles looked aesthetic. Like bills existed, but nobody was really stressed. Like people had jobs, but they also had unlimited time to just sit in a coffee shop in the middle of the day, and somehow everything just worked out. And I really want to know who approved that narrative, because now that we're actually here, adulthood is a completely different experience. So let's start with one of the biggest lies of all. And lie number one is you'll have everything figured out by a certain age. I have preached this on this podcast time and time again. And the reason why I continue to hone in on this is because TV has made it seem like there was this timeline. It was as if by your mid 20s, you would know who you are and what you're doing and where you're going and all of that. They made it seem as though you'd have a stable job and a clear identity and pretty much a sense of direction. And that's not true, because in real life, adulthood looks a lot more like, I think I'm on the right path, but also I'm not entirely sure, right? And that feeling doesn't magically go away. And the thing about it is, nobody tells you that. Nobody tells you that figuring yourself out is not a one time event. The process is ongoing. You evolve, your priorities change, and what you thought you wanted at maybe 22 might not even make sense at 47. But TV made it seem like there was this moment when everything just clicks. Like, oh, this is my life. This is who I am. And maybe that does happen for some people. I'll be honest. For some people, it does. But for most of us, it's a series of adjustments. And it's not always the final answer. One thing that I think about, a good example of this, is Issa D from the show Insecure. And if you've watched Insecure, you know. My girl had a long road in getting to where she finally was. She worked with a nonprofit, then she, did her own thing, and then finally she was able to open up her own company and be successful. And I think Issa's journey is very much what a lot of people's journey looks like. Maybe not that exact blueprint, but things change depending on where you are and how life just sometimes happens. Lie number two: freedom automatically equals happiness. Now, stick with me because this one is a bit sneaky. Because growing up, all you wanted to do was be free from your parents. You longed for some type of freedom. You didn't want any rules, curfew. You didn't want to have to always ask for permission. And you thought adulthood was going to feel like, oh, I can do whatever I want whenever I want. And technically, yes, that is true. But what they didn't tell you is that freedom also comes with responsibility. And responsibility is very heavy because now it's not, I have to wake up early because someone told me to. It's, if I don't wake up, my life starts falling apart. And nobody is making you go to work, and nobody is making you manage your money. Nobody is making you take care of yourself. All of that is on you. And that level of autonomy, it's very empowering, but I will be honest, it's also very overwhelming sometimes. Lie number 3: your friendships will always be easy and consistent. Listen, TV really had us believing that we would have the same group of friends in the same city with the same dynamic forever. And another good example of this one that comes to mind is the Sex in the City. I think that is definitely a great example of how friendships are always easy, and the same group of women that you talk to are going to be the same group of women forever. And TV made it seem as though, everybody just had unlimited time to hang out, and nobody had conflicting schedules, and nobody was tired or was really dealing with real life. But in reality, friendship in adulthood, listen, it takes effort, like real effort in trying to maintain it somehow. Because, listen, people move, people grow, people change, and maintaining friendships requires so much intention, and it's not always spontaneous. Sometimes it's, hey, let's schedule something 2 weeks from now, or you have to tell your friend, girl, I gotta look at my calendar. Or sometimes it's like, okay, I'll call you in 5 minutes, let's do a quick call. And that doesn't mean that the friendship is less real. It just means that life is just a bit different for both of you. Lie number 4: your career will make sense. And listen, I feel like this one is hitting home for me more than it should because TV made careers look so linear. You pick something, you pursue it, you succeed. And even when people struggled, it still felt like they were still on this clear path. But in real life, y'all, careers are so confusing. You might start in one direction and then you just completely pivot to something else. You might get a job in that field or in that industry, and you begin to realize you don't even really like it like that. And you might outgrow something that you worked really, really hard for, but just don't align with. And now you're kind of like, okay, so what now? And I just want to say that that's very normal. But unfortunately, TV didn't normalize that. Lie number 5: you'll always feel like an adult. And this one might be the biggest lie of all because I really thought that there would be a moment where I felt like, yes, I'm an adult. This makes sense. And maybe I did when I first turned 18, but in all honesty, it felt more like I'm doing adult things, but internally, listen, I'm still figuring it all out, okay? Because here's the thing: you're paying bills, you're making decisions, you are handling responsibilities, but sometimes you're still like, wait, who let me do this? And I think that's something that we don't talk about enough because adulthood is not a feeling. Listen, it is not. What adulthood really is a set of responsibilities. Lie number 6: life will look put together. TV had everything looking so cohesive. I mean, apartments were always clean, outfits always made sense, life always looked curated, it always looked polished. Meanwhile, in real life, you got laundry in the corner, you have a to do list that's half a mile long that you're slightly ignoring, and at least one area of your life just feels a bit chaotic. And I just want to say that that's normal. That is real life. And I think what makes all of this interesting is that we're just not navigating adulthood, we're unlearning the expectations we had about it. And we're realizing that it's okay not to have everything figured out, that it's okay to change your mind, and it's okay for things to feel uncertain at times. But honestly, I feel like there's something freeing about that. Because once you let go of the idea that adulthood has to look a certain way, you can actually start living your life, not performing it. You're not trying to match this imaginary standard that was never real to begin with. And I think that's when the real shift occurs. When you understand that adulthood is not a destination, but instead it is truly an experience. I mean, adulthood is messy, it's evolving, it's unpredictable, but it's also yours. So, yes, TV lied to us, but at the same time, it kind of gave us a good starting point. I think it gave us something to question and also something to redefine. And now we get to decide what adulthood actually looks like for us. Adulthood isn't based on a script, it's not based on a show, but it is based on real life. And I think that's something that we can all pretty much agree on. Now, before we go, I want to leave y'all with a quote from Khadijah James of the show Living Single. And she says, "You can't let fear rule your life, or you'll never really live." If this episode made you laugh, reflect, or even side eye your childhood expectations just a little bit, go ahead and send it to someone who thought adulthood was going to be a little bit more put together than this. And as always, God bless. Have an amazing day. And thank y'all for listening to Allison's Corner.